So I'm excited about this video because it's going to be a departure from what I usually share on this channel. Like many of you, I love camera gear and I suffer from a healthy dose of gas or gear acquisition syndrome. I think I've gotten better over the years, but the reason why I wanted to create this video is because enough of my usual gear has changed to where I think it'd be fun to walk you through exactly what I use and why I use it. So this is going to be very much just me and you talking, and I'm going to show you the camera that I use, followed by the lenses and my key accessories. I'm not going to dive into every single accessory, but I want to share the ones that I think are definitely worth highlighting. Also, I'm going to stick with zoom lenses for this video because those changed a lot recently, and I have another video that goes into the prime lenses I use, and I'm going to link to that at the end of this video. Finally, there's a bunch that I do to customize the settings of my camera when I get it. So let me know in the comments if you'd like to see a video focused on that, and definitely be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out. All right, let's dive in. All right, before I actually jump into showing you the gear, rather than putting links to every single thing that I use, I'm just going to link you to my gear page on my website. It has all the cameras and lenses and accessories that I use primarily, so that'll be there. It's just easier and cleaner. So let's start with the camera. And so I've used the Sony A7R line since it first came out, the Sony A7R, and then I used the 2, 3, 4, and the 5. And I love it. As a landscape photographer, it's one of the best cameras I've ever used. But recently, I would say late last year, 2024, I traded in the A7R5 for this right here. This beast is the Sony A1 Mark II. It is amazing. It is one of the most competent cameras I've ever used, and it definitely has a price to match. I believe it's like 6,500 bucks, so certainly nothing to sneeze at. But you might be wondering, well, why did you get this? Because the A7R5 is amazing. I got this because ever since I moved to Florida, the rate of landscape photography that I practiced plummeted. There isn't just that much where I live. But the rate of bird photography shot up exponentially. And so the truth is that the R5 just wasn't holding up for me. It was a great camera, megapixels for days, but the autofocus speed and the write speed, the buffer speed just was not there. This is amazing. So a few things that I love about this. I'm not going to make this kind of like a whole marketing thing for the Sony A1 II, but if you're into bird photography or maybe sports photography, anything that requires like high burst mode, very fast autofocus, and just the ability to get photos that before you actually press the shutter button, if that's you, then you probably already considered this. You might already own it. Again, it's not cheap, but the fact that I could, as I press the back button autofocus here, and I actually have a video, I'll leave a card up top showing how I use back button autofocus, but as I'm pressing that, so the camera's just focusing on a bird, and it does an amazing job of locking onto birds. Specifically, it has different AI modes for different subjects like birds and animals and people and vehicles. But for birds, it's fantastic, especially when they start taking off and flying. When I press and hold this autofocus button over here, it's writing constantly to a buffer. And you can have it write anywhere from a half a second to a full second, 30 frames in a buffer. And as soon as I press the shutter button, it writes the previous second or whatever you have set to the card. And then it also will start shooting 30 frames a second. And so it's basically like a cheat code for bird photography because the rate of me missing shots, like those key shots when a bird is like just taking off or landing or doing something, that has also plummeted because as long as I'm within a reasonable, second, I got the shot. Not only did I get the shot, but I got a sharp shot that was in focus because, again, the autofocus is amazing. So you might notice that there's a bunch of stuff strapped onto this camera. I'll go over those in a second, but before I do, I think it's also worth talking about the media cards because this is all well and good, but if you throw in, just a really kind of cheapo SD card or even a CF Express card that's not very good, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot because this camera really requires a media card that can write and read fast enough. So I've been waiting for this card for a while. Maybe actually I'll show you what I used to use. So what I used to use, hopefully it'll focus, but it's the Sony Tough card, and it's a CF Express Type A card, really small, a little bit smaller than an SD card I think, and it's 160 gigabytes. But for 160 gigabytes for this tough card, it was really expensive. It has a let's see here. It has a read speed of 800 megabytes per second and a write speed. I'm sorry, yeah, read speed of 800 megabytes per second and a write speed of 700 megabytes per second. That's great. This I never had a problem with this card in terms of the camera, not being able to write fast enough. And again, if you have a camera, if you spent like 6,500 bucks on a camera specifically for the ability to focus and pre-capture and capture a bunch of frames in a second, then you want to make sure that your card can keep up. So that was what I used to use. Now I have been an ambassador for Sandisk for years, for Sandisk Pro. Before that, it was G Technology. I've used G Technology and Sandisk products for as long as I can remember. I love them. I'm proud to be part of their program. And so the thing is, the reason why I was using these Sony cards is because Sandisk didn't make CF Express cards until now. And so that's what I've been using. Actually, this is the card. First of all, the card looks super cool, has kind of this metallic quality to it. So before, I said this was a 160 gigabyte card, and it had a 800 megabyte per second read and a 700 megabyte per second write. This is a 480 gigabyte card. So when I would put this card in my A12, I would get about 1,100, maybe 1,200 raw files per card, and then it would fail over to I had a second one, it would fail over to slot 2. This has like, I want to say, I think 4,800 raw files per card, which is, again, as a wildlife photographer or again a sports photographer, you are shooting crazy numbers of frames. So the last thing that I want to do is have to worry about like, oh wait, did I switch over? And then if I switched over, how much more space do I have left? It's a very annoying, frustrating thing. So this gives me tons of more latitude, but also the read and write speed, it more than doubles the Sony. So this has a read speed. Again, Sony had 800 megabytes per second read. This has 1,800 megabytes per second read. The Sony had 700 megabytes per second write. Again, I would argue write is very, very important. So 700 on Sony, 1,650 megabytes per second write. So these bad boys here, this is the box. Actually, in full disclosure, Sandisk sent this to me. I didn't buy these, but I'm very grateful. I'm happy to promote it because I use them and I've used their products for many years and I'm an ambassador there. So I love them. I think it's certainly worth sharing with you. And if it's something that you need to use CF Express cards, you definitely want to consider that. I'm very happy to see them on the market. There's 480 and I think there's double this as well. So capacity and read and write speeds, super, super happy to see that. Happy to see Sandisk enter the game. So I thought that was worth spending a little bit of time on as well. If you're gonna spend the money on a camera that has the capacity to write a bunch of frames, make sure that you don't skimp on the card. You want to go with a reputable brand that won't corrupt. Like, hey, listen, knock on wood, I've never had a G Technology or a Sandisk product go corrupt on me. So I will continue using it for as long as I can. So let's go back to the camera here and really quickly, just a few things. Nothing especially glamorous here. This is a Peak Design strap. I've had this thing. This goes from camera to camera. I don't even know how many years I've had this, but I take it when I get a new camera, I take it off the old one, I put it on here. It works great. And a lot of times I don't use a neck strap. I have a Peak Design neck strap right here. Nothing special, but it does the job. So the thing though that I get the most questions about when I'm in the field or just in general is this thing right here. This is just a standard Leo photo L plate. It's made for the Sony A9 Mark III, but it just happens to work on the A1 Mark II. So that's great. And I prefer L plates just because if I ever need to go into vertical orientation, I don't want to put the camera like this on my tripod. I just take it off and put it vertical. So this is a little like case by Small Rig, and the only thing it's meant to do is store an AirTag by Apple. So I have an AirTag in here. You might think it's kind of silly or overkill. You can't take it off. There are these two proprietary screws here, so you can't just like remove this thing. Yes, you can remove the L plate. Yes, I get it, but it's not so much for theft. It's just if I misplace my camera. This has happened before, not with cameras, but with lenses, where I just was absent-minded and I left the lens in a national park and then drove like 7 hours to another national park and realized I left the lens and I had to drive back. This just helps. And I'm Apple everything. So I have, I don't know, 15 or 16 different AirTags for my luggage, for my computer bags. It's just a peace of mind thing. So that's what it is. It's a Small Rig little compartment that bolts on here and it holds an AirTag. So that's the camera. Now let me move on to the lenses. So for the most part, I've always kind of used a trinity of lenses. It's the same with prime. And like I mentioned, I have a video about my kind of trinity of prime lenses, which are all Zeiss lenses. But let's start with the zoom. They're all Sony lenses. And it's not a trinity now, it's a four quadrinity. The first is this Sony 16 to 35 millimeter f2.8 GM Mark I. I've had this lens for years. It's a great lens, telescopes out a little bit. Nothing really surprising about it. And as I talk about these lenses, I'll overlay a few photos that I've taken with the lens so you can get an idea of what you can do. But I like this lens a lot. It's versatile. It goes wide enough. The reason why I stick with this and not say like a 12 to 24 is because I can still put filters. This is an 82 millimeter diameter for filters, which is the widest or the largest filter that I use is 82 millimeter, and then I will use step-up rings. But just a solid performer. I know they have a Mark II. I just didn't see the need to upgrade. It's a solid lens, and I've not really run into any issues. And that's usually the thing. Like when I really butt against the wall with a lens or a piece of gear, that's when I'm going to start looking to see if there's something else. With my camera, again, I was photographing birds, and the R5 just wasn't cutting it for me. It was frustrating me a lot. And the worst thing is it actually made me not want to photograph. And so I got a decent trade-in and got the A1 Mark II. So the next lens, this is new. I just got this maybe 6 weeks ago. I used to use the Sony 24 to 70 millimeter f2.8 GM, also the Mark I. I think there's a Mark II, but I got the 24 to 105 non-GM. This is a fixed f4, also telescopes out. Just can't avoid that with most of these zoom lenses. This is, I would say, the default lens. If I can only take one lens with me and one camera, it's this lens here. There's a reason why I sold my 24-70 and went with the 24-105. It'll make a sense in a second, but it's a great lens. It's not anything that's going to like blow your mind or anything. It's a pretty, I would say, a standard focal length. It's a mid-range zoom. 24 is wide enough. 105 is great. In fact, I like that I get that extra 35 millimeters over the 24-70. And I hardly ever shoot wide open, even when the lens supports it. So if this was a 2.8, I wouldn't shoot 2.8. I usually stop down 1 or 2 stops. So f4, I'll shoot. Usually I'm shooting like f8 in general. So not having as fast of a lens is fine. Uh, this is a 77 millimeter thread, whereas the 2470 was an 82. So this does require a step up ring, not a problem. Great lens. You can see actually I'll keep the lens hoods on, um, almost exactly the same height. So that's nice. The 2470 was larger. It was a GM lens, so the glass was superior. Totally get that, but it's fine. All right, the reason why I sold the 2470 is because I used to have the 70 to 200 as well, but I sold that a while ago. So I sold that because I got this, which is the Sony 100 to 400 millimeter f 4.5 to 5.6, and this is a GM lens. So I had a gap from 70 to 100. It's my OCD. I hated that. So the other reason why I liked getting the 24 to 105 is because it closed the gap. So now I have lenses from 16 through 400. Not only that, I have the right there. This is the Sony 1.4x teleconverter. It's pretty much, I might as well just put cement on this because I never, ever take this off. This has been my bird lens for almost the entire time that I've been photographing birds. I will go to the nearby bird sanctuaries, not even with a bag. A1 Mark II and the 100 to 400 with the 1.4 teleconverter. This is an amazing combination. I never suffer from, the lens not being fast enough. It does telescope a lot. I mean, I don't even know if this is going to be all in frame. Maybe it will, but it's a huge lens. And granted, it's with the lens hood. I should take that off. So it's still a big lens. But I love this lens. It's really good. I had considered for a while, like maybe trading this in and getting the Sony 200 to 600. But for birding, there is something to be said about the GM glass. Like it's really, really, really sharp, really good. Granted, you do lose a stop with the 1.4x teleconverter, and it's just that much more glass that light has to pass through. So yeah, I mean, something to consider, but all in all, what a fantastic combination. I've gotten tremendous photos. Like I love the photos that I've gotten. But that brings me to my newest lens. And so technically I do have coverage from 16 through 400, but really I actually have coverage from 16 to 800 because I got this gigantic hand cannon. This is the Sony 400 to 800 mil. Let me take this obnoxious lens hood off. This is the largest lens I've ever owned. It's the 400 to 800 millimeter f6.3 to 8G. So this is not a GM lens. If this was a GM lens, it would be a lot more. And this is an expensive lens, but it would be even more expensive. The thing that I love about this is that it doesn't telescope. Zoom is done all in-house. I love that. Just because sometimes, I don't know, I don't want to worry about my lens bumping into something, but all in all, this lens, again, this and the 24 to 105, these are new additions. These are the kind of motivators for me creating this videos. This and the A1 II, but oh boy, this thing is phenomenal. Same thing. I've gone to the sanctuaries with just the A1 II and this lens and nothing else with my my neck strap, and that's all I do. And it forces you to totally think differently because in some cases, I'm so close to the birds that this won't focus. So it really does require you to look at what you're shooting in a different way. Of course, there are places where when I would shoot with the 100 to 400, it would require me to do some pretty heavy cropping because the birds were pretty far away, and this really kind of takes care of that in some big ways. Of course, when I crop with this, it's even better. Like the images look fantastic. So not a cheap lens. Definitely specialized, I would say, for birders and wildlife. But I love it. It's a really, really great lens. I remember when Sony announced this, I was so happy because for a while they were just announcing lenses that I just didn't care about. They were just repurposing existing lenses, making, Mark IIs of them. This is a purpose-built lens. And if you're listening, on top of that, even though I don't do cityscapes and architecture anymore, I still would love a tilt shift lens. Um, you know, Either a 24 or something like that. But man, like it would be great to have a tilt shift lens. So again, 400 to 800, that wraps up the lenses. And so I just want to close out the video with just a few accessories that um, I really rely on, especially with the A1 Mark II. So the first one is an accessory that if you bought the A1 Mark II, you got this. It's a battery charger. And I give Sony so much credit for this. This is obviously a 2 battery charger, but here's the best part. Ta-da! USB-C as the port here. Sony, thank you for doing this. Thank you for having common sense and not making us use just a little proprietary power cable. This is fantastic. I love that it comes with the A1 Mark II. I believe they sell this separately. I love this thing. It's awesome. The fact that it supports charging 2 batteries simultaneously and that it's USB-C on board. Just good job, Sony. Like, well done. The other thing I mentioned, the A1 Mark II is the first camera that I really switched over to CF Express Type A. It's not the first camera I owned that supported it, but I never really needed the read and write speeds with the R5 because I didn't do heavy bursts. So when you are done shooting, the first thing that for me I do is I need to get the images off the card. And so I got this Lexar. It's CF Express and SD. And of course, it's USB-C. Great little thing. This goes with me everywhere. It's just a pretty basic card reader, but it reads and writes fast. And here's the other thing. Don't invest in the camera and the CF Express cards and the reader, and then also skimp out on your USB-C cable, because I promise you, you're just shooting yourself in the foot. So I have, it's a USB-C cable. It's by Cable Matters. I love this company, Cable Matters. I have a bunch of their cables and their adapters for the iPad, but this cable is rated for the fastest possible data throughput. And I promise you, if you connect this card reader to your computer with just like a off-the-shelf like anchor cable, like one that you use to charge, and you try to transfer the data from the card to your computer, and then you switch to this, you'll see a world of a difference. So that's just kind of like a PSA as well. Like, don't skimp on the USB-C cable. Make sure that it is a good gauge, heavy gauge cable, and that it's actually rated for very high speed data throughput, because not all USB cables are created equally. And really, I mean, the last thing, it's not even anything exciting, but it's just this old school think tank battery pack. I love this thing. I've had this thing forever. It holds 4. So I think this is actually made for Canon batteries, but it fits the Sony batteries perfectly. And here's just like a little tip, simple tip. But so obviously 4 batteries. These are all fully charged. When a battery dies, because that's one thing about this A1 Mark II, it doesn't sip, it gulps battery power, especially if you're using pre-capture a lot, which I do. But when the battery's dead, what I do is so right now, I don't know if you saw that, but basically that's how the batteries are oriented. When it's dead, I put it with the contacts side up. So right here, you should be able to see, hopefully, this battery, I can see the contact. So I know this is dead and it needs to be charged. Little silly little thing. Same thing with my cards. I'll put the card upside down in my holder, just so I know that it hasn't been cleared for formatting. So that is basically the key gear that I use. I didn't go into my tripods or anything like that. All of those are listed on my gear page, which I will link to below. But I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if you enjoyed that. I know I asked it to let me know if you want to see a video on how I configure the options and the menus on Sony cameras. Let me know if you do want to see that. But if you like this style of video, please do let me know. I'm happy to do more of them. Maybe we'll do deep dives into specific lenses. I think that could be fun. So with that, I mentioned that I also have this video. I called it the case for primes. Check it out. It kind of is my philosophy on prime lenses. I hope you enjoyed that. And yeah, be sure please to give a thumbs up on this video if you found it helpful. It actually really helps the channel. And of course, subscribe and click the bell icon to get notified of all future videos. Thanks a lot, everyone.